Jai-woon works for a home services company specializing in cleaning for people who don't have time to tidy up their homes. Today, he arrived at the house of an elderly man, a regular client who lives alone. On the table, there was a roll of toilet paper, ointment, and stinky socks scattered haphazardly. He has an obsession with cleanliness, so this mess was a real challenge for him. Jai-woon began working, placing each item in its proper place. Clothes were hung neatly on hangers, and the house instantly became clean and orderly. After finishing the cleaning, he even cooked the old man a delicious meal. The old man praised his service endlessly and introduced him to the girl who lived in the apartment across the way. That girl was notoriously messy, but Jai-woon adhered to his principle. He would never actively seek clients, but only wait for them to come to him. While busy on the balcony, Jai-woon spotted the messy girl the old man had mentioned hanging up clothes. She took clothes straight from the hamper and threw them on hangers without even shaking them out. Jai-woon shook his head in dismay, blurting out, "They look like they were just taken out of the wash, all wrinkled up." Da-young, wrongly scolded, angrily returned to her room. After her father passed away, she lived alone in the large house. Because she was paying off her father's debts and was currently an intern at an advertising company, her life was incredibly difficult. Before going to work, she took 2 large bags of trash to the collection point, but it wasn't the designated collection time, so dumping the trash was a violation of the rules. Da-young was in a hurry to get to work, only able to bow her head in apology to the supervisor. By the time the trash collectors arrived, she was already gone. Turning around, she bumped into Jai-woon. Seeing Jai-woon give a polite nod, Da-young apologized to him for violating the rules. However, she suspected that Jai-woon was trying to approach her to pitch his home services. Regardless, she was determined to never hire a home service. When getting off the bus, Da-young saw her team leader's car drive past. Fearing she was late for work, she ran as fast as she could towards the company. Unexpectedly, 2 male colleagues, wanting to pretend they'd been working all night, thrust their bags into her hands, asking her to bring them to their desks. Da-young rushed into the company before her team leader arrived. The 2 male colleagues tried to get their bags back, but Da-young glanced at the cleaning lady, who had apparently hidden the bags in the trash can. Later, the cleaning lady secretly returned the bags to their owners. The late arrival was covered up, but the bags reeked of trash. The team leader called everyone into a meeting, but Da-young was ordered by a senior colleague to make calls to clients. As an intern, she had no right to speak up, and could only endure it. Worse yet, before she finished her calls, she was ordered by the same senior colleague to order food for everyone. Da-young took out her notebook, carefully noting everyone's food preferences. While everyone gathered to enjoy the delicious meal, she only dared to eat simple sushi to save money. After lunch, Da-young discovered that the company's deputy director had returned from his business trip. Her colleagues flocked around the deputy director, chatting animatedly. She, however, felt like an outsider. Unexpectedly, an opportunity arose. The plan the other colleagues had presented was rejected, and the deputy director, worried, asked Da-young to offer a fresh idea. Da-young articulated her innovative ideas clearly. The deputy director listened very attentively and entrusted her with executing the plan in detail. Da-young was extremely grateful, promising not to disappoint the deputy director's trust. However, he only said coldly, "I'm just giving you a chance to try." Her enthusiasm was like having a bucket of cold water thrown on it. After work, Da-young received a debt reminder text message from the bank. In a bad mood, she battled the strong wind while calling her best friend to complain. Her friend reminded her that if she hesitated to pay the debt, her house could be foreclosed upon. Instead, she should rent out the empty rooms to reduce the financial burden. Da-young pondered her friend's advice. As she approached the entrance to her neighborhood, she noticed that the wind was scattering trash everywhere. In the strong gust, a man was struggling with the debris, plastic bottles attacking him. It was a complete mess. Da-young had no idea that the man was the CEO of John Company. Nor did she realize that the trash flying all over the place was the same trash she had dumped there the previous morning. The next morning, a Saturday, she wanted to sleep in a little, but was woken early by the doorbell. Standing outside was her elderly neighbor. As soon as she opened the door, the old man shoved a bag of trash into her hands, demanding that she clean up the mess immediately. It was then that Da-young realized the 2 trash bags she had dumped the previous morning had reappeared at her doorstep. The bags were torn, and the trash had been blown everywhere by the wind. She immediately recalled Jae-woon seeing her dumping the trash yesterday. She suspected Jae-woon had brought the trash back, leading to this current situation. Da-young resigned herself to sitting down and picking up the trash, vowing revenge on Jae-woon. At that moment, Jae-woon, the very person she was cursing, was busy cleaning a family's home. The woman of the house was raising 2 children alone and looked utterly exhausted. Jae-woon patiently cleaned all the rooms thoroughly, transforming the house completely. Before leaving, he left a note reminding the husband, who was out working, to empathize with his wife who was struggling to raise the children alone. When the husband returned home from work, he saw the tidy house and Jae-woon's note and began to reflect. He took a leave of absence to care for the children. The wife's mood also stabilized. The 2 smiled at each other, their relationship thawing. As a housekeeper, Jae-woon could enter many homes, but his own home was always locked up tight. He stood in front of his door, hesitant to go inside. He would rather get scolded by his boss than go home. Everyone in the city had their own troubles. As an intern, Da-young was worried about being looked down upon by her colleagues. Deputy director and called to inform her that the idea she proposed had been accepted by the client. Her colleagues cheered with excitement and suggested going out to celebrate. However, they all forgot about Da-young, the one who deserved the most credit. Da-young sadly stayed behind to work overtime. Too hungry to bear, she was about to leave work when she received a text message from her colleagues asking her to bring their bags to the karaoke bar. Da-young, with an empty stomach, hurried to the karaoke bar. There, her full and merry colleagues pressured her to sing for fun. Someone even made a joke about her being considered for a full-time position, saying that maybe if she sang well, her dream of becoming a full-time employee would come true. Da-young wanted to seize this opportunity. Before singing, she expressed her desire to be hired full-time in a month and a half. Everyone understood Da-young's intentions, but no one spoke up. The team leader even joined in, urging her to just sing. After the party, Da-young helped her intoxicated female colleague into a taxi. The colleague reminded Da-young that very few interns got hired full-time. She hadn't seen anyone get hired since she joined the company. This comment plunged Da-young's mood into a deep abyss. She reflected on recent events and felt a great wave of sadness. To vent her frustrations, she called a roadside emergency hotline to pour out her feelings to the operator. Coincidentally, Jae-woon passed by the bridge and saw Da-young crying. Da-young also saw Jae-woon. She immediately hung up her phone and ran to confront Jae-woon about the trash. However, 2 police officers suddenly appeared, thinking that Da-young wanted to commit suicide, and took her to the station. Da-young explained that she was just calling to vent her feelings and didn't have any bad intentions, but the police still required her to contact a family member to pick her up. She fumbled around looking for her phone, only to realize she had forgotten it and her colleague's bag on the bridge. In her bag, all that remained was Jae-woon's business card, which the old man had given her earlier. At the same time, Jae-woon discovered that Da-young had left some of her belongings behind. He took the items back to his company and, while considering how to contact Da-young, her phone received a text message from the bank reminding her about an overdue debt. Jae-woon saw the content of the text and glanced at the designer handbag beside it, immediately jumping to the conclusion that Da-young was the type of woman who craved vanity. Just then, his boss received a phone call from the police. While looking for Jae-woon, the boss learned that Da-young was in need of help. The boss took Jae-woon to the police station. Jae-woon explained to the police that he was not Da-young's guardian. Moreover, Da-young was in debt with the bank, couldn't even pay the interest, yet she was buying designer handbags. He insisted that she was definitely a woman with issues. With that, Jae-woon wanted to leave. The boss, on the other hand, viewed Da-young as a potential client who needed assistance. He explained to the police that they were acquainted. Then, he took Da-young away. The boss volunteered to drive Da-young home. Jae-woon and Da-young had both misunderstood each other and couldn't stand the sight of one another. The boss, unaware of what had happened, kept urging Da-young to hire Jae-woon to clean her house. However, Da-young was short on cash and just made excuses to refuse. Seeing this, Jae-woon assumed that Da-young didn't trust him and therefore refused to clean her house. Annoyed, Da-young snapped, "If that's the case, don't secretly stare at my house and don't bring your trash over here either." Jae-woon was dumbfounded and was about to retort when the car arrived at Da-young's doorstep. As soon as she got out of the car, Da-young turned away. He quickly drove off as well. That evening, people came to view the house based on Da-young's online rental listing. Despite the spaciousness of the house, the messiness was very displeasing to them. Before leaving, they even mocked Da-young for being disorganized. Jae-woon and the boss, who were having drinks with the old man, witnessed this scene. The boss asked more questions and guessed that Da-young was renting out her house because she was short of money. The old man recounted how Da-young's father had passed away and left her with a large debt. Jae-woon remembered the debt reminder text message Da-young received and suspected that perhaps he had misunderstood her. Jae-woon then received an urgent late-night cleaning job for a generous fee. He went to the house of Sang-ae, the person requesting help. Sang-ae's boyfriend had been abroad for 5 years. Before he left, he entrusted her with the care of his house and dog. Throughout those 5 years, he hadn't come back to visit even once, and he often didn't reply to her messages. He only proactively contacted her when inquiring about the well-being of his dog. Because she was busy making a living, Sang-ae didn't have time to clean. Unexpectedly, her boyfriend suddenly messaged her to say he would be back home in 7 hours. Sang-ae frantically contacted Jae-woon for help. Stepping inside, Jae-woon was truly overwhelmed. He couldn't believe that a girl could live in such disarray. Due to the time constraint, the two divided the work and cleaned together. While cleaning the study, Sang-ae accidentally saw a photo of her boyfriend with another woman. There was a caption on the back of the photo as well. Sang-ae felt very upset and started pouring her heart out about her relationship to Jae-woon, a stranger. Actually, she had known for a long time that her existence meant nothing to her boyfriend. All this time, she had been deceiving herself, because her successful boyfriend was the only source of pride in her otherwise ordinary life. Sang-ae was a jewelry designer. She had once partnered with a senior to open a jewelry workshop, but due to some issues, the workshop had to temporarily close. Overnight, she went from a proud vice president to an unemployed individual, only making handmade crafts at home for a living. But because of her vanity, she hadn't breathed a word about her unemployment to anyone, still sending money to her mother and lying that she was still working as a vice president. She had lost her career. If she lost her boyfriend as well, then she would truly be left with nothing. Jae-woon understood her thoughts, but he still reminded her that love is not about waiting and giving unilaterally. If she didn't want to be abandoned, she should take control of her own fate and not become a fish on a chopping block for others to decide. Sang-ae thought deeply about Jae-woon's words, forcing herself to make a choice. Just as she was hesitating, her boyfriend sent her a message saying that his time was limited. After returning to the country to handle some work, he had to go back immediately, with no time to stop by. Finally, Sang-ae made a decision. She wanted to become a strong woman, not dependent on men. So, after tidying up her house, she moved out and decisively sent a breakup text to her boyfriend. On the other side, Da-young, after being criticized by a client, also started cleaning her room. But there were too many things, and the more she cleaned, the messier it became. She packed away the things she didn't use to throw them away. The old woman in charge of monitoring the garbage collection point told her that the other day, if her boyfriend hadn't brought the trash back, she would have called the police. Da-young thought hard and finally remembered that the boyfriend the old woman was talking about was Jae-woon. At that moment, she realized that the trash incident wasn't Jae-woon trying to sabotage her, but rather, he had helped her realize that she had misunderstood him. Da-young felt guilty and wanted to apologize to him, but she was too embarrassed. The old man who was talking with Jae-woon noticed that Da-young looked like she wanted to say something, so he pulled the two of them together and told them to talk things out clearly. Da-young prepared herself, and then apologized for her misunderstanding. She asked if Jae-woon needed any help. When Jae-woon came to Da-young's house, she introduced it as a house that her father designed with his own hands, and every corner was filled with beautiful memories of the two of them. Jae-woon saw that the living room was full of Da-young's father's belongings. She suggested starting by cleaning these items, but for her, they were all very precious, so she couldn't bear to throw any of them away. Jae-woon understood and told her to go clean the bedroom while he cleaned the living room. When Da-young came out, the messy living room from before had become clean and tidy. Jae-woon had sorted the items and put them in concealed places. The living room looked much more spacious and brighter. At that moment, someone rang the doorbell. It was Sang-a and So-mi. The three of them used to be best friends in high school, but they had gradually drifted apart. Sang-a was very surprised to see Jae-woon there. After that, she realized that Da-young, like her, wasn't good at cleaning. Jae-woon sensed the strange atmosphere between the three of them, so he told Da-young that he would come back tomorrow to finish cleaning up the other areas, and quickly left. After Jae-woon left, Da-young took the two of them to see the rooms. Now, the three of them were the most familiar strangers. Although it was a bit awkward, due to their individual needs, they quickly reached an agreement about renting the house. In the evening, Haiju came to congratulate the four of them on being together again, while also bringing up the issue that the three of them had been intentionally avoiding for so long. Back in 10th grade, the three of them were a close-knit group of friends, calling themselves the Three Musketeers. But after that summer vacation, their relationship suddenly fractured. Until now, Haiju still didn't know why. Sang-a remembered the reason their relationship fell apart that year. Her family went bankrupt. She only confided in Da-young, and Da-young promised to keep it a secret. Unexpectedly, the next day, the whole class knew about it. With her pride hurt, she got angry and slapped Da-young across the face. From then on, the three of them went their separate ways. Now that the old story was brought up, Da-young explained that she really wasn't the one who gossiped that year. Before Da-young could finish her sentence, So-mi burst into tears, confessing that she was the one who had revealed the secret. She had accidentally overheard their conversation. At the time, she was upset about some things and was also being bombarded by questions from friends about Sang-a's family. Not knowing how to answer, she blurted out the fact that Sang-a's family had gone bankrupt. The truth was out. So-mi cried as she apologized to the whole group. The misunderstandings in everyone's hearts were resolved, and the whole group drank heavily together. After settling the drunk So-mi into bed, Sang-a apologized to Da-young. Da-young also blamed herself, saying that she should have explained things more clearly that year. The two looked at each other and smiled. Their friendship was rekindled. The next day, Sang-a generously forgave So-mi. After sobering up, Da-young reflected that when they were in school, they had said that they would live together when they grew up. Unexpectedly, they were now inadvertently realizing their old dream. Early in the morning, Jae-woon came again to clean. By that time, Da-young and So-mi had gone to work, and only Sang-a was at home stringing beads. While handling her phone, Sang-a accidentally dropped some beads on the floor. She didn't notice and stepped on them, slipped, and injured her spine. Jae-woon helped her contact Da-young and the others, but everyone was busy and couldn't come right away. Reluctantly, Jae-woon had to take Sang-a to the hospital himself. What surprised him was that in this situation, Sang-a was still determined to put on makeup before going to the hospital. Upon arriving, Sang-a received a call from a childhood elementary school friend, inviting her to her engagement party. This friend also reminded her to definitely bring a boyfriend. Sang-a and this friend were long-time arch enemies. Not wanting to be outdone, she agreed, but then realized she didn't have anyone to bring. Suddenly, an idea popped into her head, and she looked over at Jae-woon. Sang-a begged Jae-woon to go with her, promising to pay him handsomely. Jae-woon, after being pestered for a while, finally agreed. But he didn't expect that, in order to attend the party, Sang-a wanted to buy expensive tickets and a formal dress. Jae-woon couldn't understand why Sang-a, who worked so hard stringing beads, would so willingly spend money to satisfy her vanity. Sang-a secretly told him that the clothes were only rented and would be returned after the event. Actually, Sang-a had her own reasons for doing this. When she was young, she always thought she was the center of the universe, loved by everyone. Until her enemy transferred to her class, that person took away all the spotlight that belonged to her, which made her very insecure. Sang-a still remembered that feeling and didn't want to be outdone by her enemy at any time. Jae-woon couldn't understand the strange competition between women, but seeing that he couldn't refuse, he had to agree. After finishing Sang-a's errands, Jae-woon returned to Da-young's house to continue cleaning. When he went into Da-young's bedroom, he saw that the room was still a mess. Da-young explained that every item felt meaningful to her, and she couldn't bear to throw them away. Jae-woon told her that the most important thing about cleaning wasn't about throwing things away, but about keeping things. Jae-woon suggested that she keep the memories, but the items should be discarded. Afterward, he took pictures of each item to preserve the memory, and then told Da-young to throw them away one by one in chronological order. Da-young felt that Jae-woon's approach was brilliant. It even inspired her to write a plan related to household chores, aiming to help women who couldn't give up their jobs nor neglect their housework, those who sought balance between the two. She named her plan Handsome Housekeepers. Da-young's plan was approved by Vice President An. The Vice President even put it up on the big screen and explained that housework was no longer solely women's responsibility. The Handsome Housekeepers service broke down people's outdated notions. They could advertise on forums and social media pages for mothers, attracting women with disposable income to use the housekeeper service and buy related products. Everyone thought the idea was great, but Da-young discovered that the name on the plan had been replaced by Vice President An. She immediately realized that Vice President An had stolen her credit. Da-young was furious, but didn't dare say anything, only imagining in her head the scene of her rushing up to expose the Vice President's despicable actions. In reality, she didn't even dare ask. Meanwhile, Vice President An calmly asked her to make a detailed presentation, instructing her to include photos of handsome men in the slideshow. On the other side, Sang-a took Jae-woon to an engagement party. Seeing the other women staring at her expensive dress, Sang-a was very pleased. Just when she was getting smug, a man slipped. The glass of red wine in his hand flew straight towards her and Jae-woon, pouring all over Sang-a. To make amends, the man hurriedly stepped forward and started wiping her with a tissue. You scolded him for making it worse. He grabbed a bottle of white wine from the table and pulled Sang-a into the bathroom to clean it off. You used the white wine to try to remove the stain. It was clear that the remaining stain needed to be taken to a dry cleaner to be dealt with properly. Sang-a was on the verge of tears. The tag on her dress was still on. She had planned to wear it once and then return it. Once it was dry cleaned, she wouldn't be able to return it. After coming out, Sang-a found out that the man from earlier was Lawyer Kwon, who also happened to be the only one of her ex-boyfriends who had dumped his ex-girlfriend. The lawyer insisted on compensating her. Sang-a had no choice but to give him her business card. But after she got home, she remembered that the phone number on the card was from a jewelry workshop that had closed down. After much deliberation, she decided to take the initiative and contact Lawyer Kwon to receive compensation. She carefully chose her words, wanting to sound polite, but inadvertently sent a message demanding compensation. She scolded herself for being stupid, not knowing that the lawyer was ecstatic upon receiving her text. Lawyer Kwon had met Sang-a a few times before and had a great impression of her. This time, he had accidentally stained Sang-a's dress, giving him the opportunity to get to know her. He was agonizing over whether to call the phone number on the business card, and then received her message. Sang-a had resolved her problem, while Da-young was swamped with trivial matters. The team leader's son was about to start kindergarten, and the team leader ordered Da-young to go stand in line to register at the school gate, as he wanted to be hired full-time. Da-young didn't dare disobey, and from 10 p.m. the night before until 5 a.m. the next morning, she finally secured a spot. She reported the news to the team leader, who happily gave her the day off. Da-young didn't dare be careless, deciding to sleep for 2 hours and then go to work. Upon returning home, she placed the registration card on the table, turned on the fan, and fell asleep, not noticing that the card had been blown under the cabinet by the wind. Jae-woon came again to clean. This time, he had to clean Da-young's kitchen and bedroom. While he was working, Da-young secretly took photos of him to use in a presentation. When it was time for work, the team leader asked for the preschool registration sign. Da-young rummaged through her bag as if she couldn't find it, then quickly ran home. She searched and saw that Jae-woon had cleaned her bedroom thoroughly, but the registration sign was nowhere to be found. Worried, she asked Jae-woon if he had seen it. Hearing Da-young's description, Jae-woon realized that she was an intern who had to do such menial tasks. Da-young felt ashamed, suspecting that Jae-woon had thrown the sign away. But what was done, and she couldn't blame Jae-woon. In the evening, Da-young continued to search and finally found it under the cabinet. Just as she was rejoicing, So-mai came back and told her that Jae-woon was sorting through the trash at the collection point. Da-young ran out to apologize to Jae-woon, explaining that she had accidentally lost the sign. Jae-woon coldly replied, "It's good that you found it." With that, he turned and walked away. Da-young thought Jae-woon was angry. In her heart, she felt extremely guilty, because she still needed Jae-woon's help. It turned out that after seeing John's photos, Vice President and decided to invite him to be a model for an advertisement and assigned this task to Da-young. After what had just happened, Do-jang really didn't dare to approach John. Ironically, during the meeting, Vice President and presented the handsome housekeeper plan and received praise from her superiors. In the middle of the meeting, Da-young had menstrual cramps and ran to the restroom. By the time she came out, the meeting had finished. Her colleagues told her that Vice President and had announced in front of everyone that the handsome housekeeper was Da-young's idea. It turned out that last time, Vice President and put her name on the plan because she knew very well that the company would never give an intern an opportunity. If she had said from the beginning that it was Da-young's idea, it definitely wouldn't have been approved. Da-young understood Vice President An's intentions and expressed her gratitude. Vice President An asked her to go find Jae-woon to discuss a collaboration immediately. Da-young, enduring her cramps, led Vice President An to find Jae-woon. Before that, she had asked the director to convey her intention to collaborate to Jae-woon. Vice President An got straight to the point, stating her purpose for coming. Jae-woon wasn't at all interested in filming an advertisement, but he noticed that Da-young's face was very pale. While Da-young was in the restroom, Vice President An asked Jae-woon about his relationship with Da-young. Jae-woon asked the Vice President the same question. They were clearly superiors and subordinates working together, but the Vice President hadn't noticed that Da-young was sick or was deliberately ignoring it. Either way, it was unacceptable. Hearing Jae-woon say that, Da-young felt warmth in her heart. She wanted to try to stand up, but suddenly felt dizzy. Jae-woon immediately picked her up and ran to the hospital. A little while later, Da-young woke up. In the past, she had often had period cramps, and each time she only needed to rest for a while to recover. She was busy with work, didn't have time to go to the doctor, and was also afraid that she might have a serious illness, so she kept hesitating and didn't go. This time, she wanted to get the Roman 4 drip and go straight home. Jae-woon stopped her, insisting that she get a full checkup to find out what was wrong before leaving. The doctor diagnosed Da-young with menstrual cramps and prescribed birth control pills. When Jae-woon went to buy the pills with Da-young, they unexpectedly ran into Vice President An, who had just arrived. This made her even more convinced that they were a couple. On the way home, Da-young was very grateful to Jae-woon for helping her. Jae-woon didn't understand why, if she was struggling so much, she didn't just sell the house. This comment made Da-young remember when her father passed away. Her relatives had also urged her to sell the house to pay off debts, but she didn't want to lose the only thing her father had left her. No matter how hard things got, she had to keep the house. Saying this, Da-young thanked Jae-woon again. The house was as if Jae-woon had cast a spell on it, becoming both clean and tidy. Jae-woon couldn't bear to see Da-young living so miserably, so he reluctantly agreed to consider doing the advertisement. Jae-woon took Da-young home, and her other friends were very worried about her condition. Jae-woon, being the kind person he is, borrowed ingredients from the old man and cooked the girls a delicious dinner. All 4 of them praised Jae-woon's cooking skills. Jae-woon asked Sang-ae if the issue with the dress had been resolved. Sang-ae said she had scheduled a meeting with Lawyer Kwon. Her best friend then made up a fairy tale about Cinderella and her prince, hoping Sang-ae and Lawyer Kwon would become a couple. Today was the day of the meeting, and Lawyer Kwon had researched dating tips online beforehand, preparing what to eat and what to say. He even walked Sang-ae all the way home, deliberately finding excuses to pass by her house from time to time. Da-young happened to run into Sang-ae while she was shopping. He greeted her enthusiastically, wanting to come up to her place for a cup of coffee, but Sang-ae was aloof, feeling embarrassed, and subtly turned down Lawyer Kwon. She went home, put on sunglasses, and led him to the bar owned by Jae-woon's boss. Lawyer Kwon immediately recognized Jae-woon, the same person who had attended the engagement party with Sang-ae. That day, when he learned that Jae-woon frequently visited Sang-ae's house, he had asked about the relationship between the two. "He's not her boyfriend. He's my boyfriend." Jae-woon had to explain that he was only helping Sang-ae and her 2 friends clean up their house, hoping lawyer Kwon wouldn't misunderstand. Realizing that Sang-a was using Jae-woon as a shield, lawyer Kwon said that doing so hurt him even more than being rejected directly. He openly admitted his feelings for Sang-a, promising not to bother her anymore. Sang-a had resolved her problem, but the lonely expression on lawyer Kwon's face as he left made her feel a pang of sadness. Meanwhile, Jae-woon officially agreed to film the commercial. Da-young was delighted and wanted to throw her arms around Jae-woon, but he immediately told her that the house was almost finished and that he wouldn't be coming anymore, reminding the three girls to take turns cleaning up. After Jae-woon left, the three girls quickly had a meeting. None of them were good at cleaning, and they didn't want to lose their housekeeper, who was both good at cleaning and cooking, like Jae-woon. So, they ultimately decided to chip in and continue to hire him. Sang-a pleaded with Jae-woon to help them. Jae-woon also didn't want his hard work cleaning up to go to waste, so he agreed. On her way to work, Da-young received a text message from Sang-a, very happy that Jae-woon had agreed to continue helping. At a company meeting, Vice President assigned Da-young to oversee the entire Handsome Housekeeper project, and also requested that a long-time employee assist her. The long-time employee was very resentful, deliberately ignoring Da-young's introductory messages. Soon after, Da-young's proposal was successful, and she secured the advertising contract thanks to her innovative ideas. Her colleagues were all very happy, and Da-young was even more excited. After work, she immediately rushed to tell Jae-woon the good news. Jae-woon wasn't at the bar, so Da-young waited for him. In the meantime, she went to the restroom. When she came out of curiosity, she stepped into Jae-woon's room. She picked up a book from the table and accidentally dropped a piece of paper that was tucked inside. Just as Da-young picked up the paper, Jae-woon unexpectedly walked in, snatched the book and the paper away. He looked very angry. Da-young, seeing Jae-woon's anger, apologized for entering his room without permission. Then, she quickly told him about going to the company to sign the contract tomorrow. The next day, Jae-woon went to Da-young's company, but saw that the contract stated that they only needed a superficial clean and a perfunctory filming. Jae-woon frankly said that he agreed to do the advertisement because he thought cleaning could help a family in need. He didn't want to do it half-heartedly. He wouldn't take the modeling fee, only the payment for the cleaning work. The team leader criticized Da-young for finding such an inflexible and unreasonable person. Vice President and decided to follow Jae-woon's suggestion and film Jae-woon cleaning a client's house for real. Da-young gave the revised contract to Jae-woon. Looking at the information on the contract, she realized that John's birthday was in a few days. Everything was ready. Da-young, Jae-woon, and the film crew went to the first client's house. It was a single-parent family. The mother was raising 2 young children. Jae-woon noticed that the room wasn't too messy, just a simple cleanup was needed. However, when he opened the refrigerator, he saw that it was full of expired food. Jae-woon began to clean out the fridge, throwing away the expired and spoiled items. But at that moment, the youngest son suddenly shouted, "Not trash, don't throw it." Jae-woon thought the boy was just being fussy, but when he went to stir-fry some dried mushrooms, the boy suddenly rushed out. The pan in Jae-woon's hand was knocked flying. Fearing the hot pan would hit the boy, Jae-woon shielded him with his hand, burning his own hand. The boy's mother explained that the dumplings in the fridge were made by her ex-husband. Since the divorce, the boy rarely saw his father, so he opposed throwing away anything his father left behind. Jae-woon understood the situation and felt very sad inside. In the evening, after filming, Jae-woon and Da-young were about to leave when the older sister told their mother that her younger brother was missing. Jae-woon and Da-young went to help search. Finally, Jae-woon found the boy. He told the boy that throwing away things didn't mean throwing away his father's love. Those things were spoiled and would make him sick if he ate them. If the boy wanted, he could make them again with him. Jae-woon took the boy home, bought various vegetables, and made dumplings for him by hand. Da-young stayed to make dumplings with everyone. Seeing the happy smiles of the family, Da-young felt warmth. She secretly praised Jae-woon for being so thoughtful and kind. On the way home, Da-young was sentimental. She was very envious of those who had families by their side because, unlike them, she had no relatives, she was all alone. Jae-woon also shared that his parents had both passed away when he was young. When he was the same age as that boy, he had to do all the housework by himself. It was precisely because of that experience that he chose his current career. Listening to Jae-woon's story, Da-young planned to organize a birthday party for him. On his birthday, Jae-woon, Da-young, and her two friends cooked a meal themselves, wanting to surprise Jae-woon. All four girls were novices in cooking. They cooked while looking at the recipes, and finally managed to prepare a meal. Da-young had carefully discussed it with the old man, and asked him to use the pretext of calling Jae-woon over. The old man understood and pretended that Da-young's father had borrowed things from him when he was alive, and asked Jae-woon to return them. Hearing Jae-woon opening the door, the four of them brought out the birthday cake and sang the Happy Birthday song loudly. After blowing out the candles, the four of them waited with bated breath for Jae-woon's comments. Jae-woon tasted each dish one by one. The flavor wasn't actually very good, but it was clear that each dish had been made according to his preferences. He was very touched. As they were happily eating and drinking, everyone noticed that Jae-woon's speech was a bit slurred. They were very surprised. He had only drunk fruit juice, yet he was drunk. Jae-woon tried to point at Da-young, accusing her of being the culprit. At this point, Da-young remembered that while cooking, she had poured half a bottle of red wine in to get rid of the fishy smell. The drunken Jae-woon was forced to stay the night. Da-young woke up in the middle of the night to get a drink of water and took the opportunity to put a blanket over Jae-woon. Looking at Jae-woon's peaceful sleeping face, her heart suddenly started to race. She realized something was not right. Just as she was about to stand up and leave, Jae-woon unexpectedly grabbed her and kissed her. In his dream, Jae-woon had mistaken Da-young for his ex-girlfriend who had disappeared. After the kiss, he held Da-young's hand, closing his eyes and begging her not to leave. The next morning, Jae-woon woke up with absolutely no memory of what had happened the night before, but Da-young had tossed and turned all night. When she met Jae-woon, she was a little embarrassed, looked him directly in the eyes, and then unconsciously avoided his gaze. Today, everyone at the company watched the cleaning advertisement starring Jae-woon together. Jae-woon was very photogenic, and the filming was very well done, but Vice President and found it a bit bland. She noticed a surveillance video of Jae-woon and Da-young making dumplings with the boy's family. Vice President and wanted to include this video in the official film, but Da-young didn't want to expose someone else's private life. She worried that the boy's mother's divorce would be gossiped about by everyone, causing them pain. Vice President and became angry and demanded that she think from the company's perspective, telling her to contact the boy's mother to discuss this matter. Da-young reluctantly sent a message to the boy's mother. When Jae-woon suddenly appeared, Da-young jumped. Jae-woon explained that Vice President and had called him to discuss this issue. Seeing that Da-young was avoiding his gaze, Jae-woon wondered, "Did I do something wrong last night?" Da-young didn't tell the truth. Jae-woon didn't remember anything, and she didn't want to bring it up proactively, as it would only make both of them feel embarrassed. On the way home, Da-young tentatively asked Jae-woon if he was waiting for someone very important. Seeing that Jae-woon didn't deny it, Da-young felt a little sad. Jae-woon was waiting for the person he loved, and she had developed inappropriate feelings for him. Later, Jae-woon and Vice President and went to the boy's house, asking the boy's mother for her opinion on whether they could include the dumpling making video in the official film. The boy's mother was very grateful to Jae-woon. Not only had Jae-woon cleaned her house, but he also taught her children how to organize their things, helping her share the burden, so she agreed to allow the video to be included in the film. The matter was resolved smoothly. On the way back, Vice President and unexpectedly received a call from the hospital. Jae-woon quickly took her to the hospital. After Vice President and got out of the car, Da-young realized that she had left her handbag in the car and chased after her. Jae-woon wanted to call Da-young back, but she was running too fast. Da-young rushed upstairs and saw Vice President and comforting a sick boy. The boy called Vice President and Mom. Vice President and asked Da-young to keep it a secret. Years ago, when she discovered she was pregnant, her irresponsible boyfriend had left her. She decided to have the child alone. However, reality was harsh. When companies found out she was a single mother, they refused to hire her to support her child. Out of necessity, she hid her situation, which allowed her to find a job and establish a solid position in the company. If the truth were exposed now, she would be crushed by public opinion and lose her job. Hearing this, Da-young agreed to keep the secret. Vice President and breathed a sigh of relief. She advised Da-young that if she wanted to continue to advance in the company, she should be careful not to get too close to John. Da-young explained that they weren't dating. Vice President An, drawing from her own experience, told her that the nature of the relationship didn't matter. What mattered was that rumors would severely impact her. Seeing Da-young come out of the hospital looking pensive, Jae-woon guessed that she knew what had happened. Furthermore, Da-young had experienced stomach pain and fainted. Vice President An had taken her to a cafe. A part-time employee at the cafe had overheard Vice President An's phone call. Upon hearing her refer to herself as Mom during the conversation, she had told Jae-woon about it. Earlier, Jae-woon had wanted to call Da-young back because he didn't want her to know the secret that Vice President An was hiding. Unfortunately, he was too late. On their way, noticing that Da-young was still acting cold, she was contemplating whether or not to tell Jae-woon the secret. Da-young looked at Jae-woon, pondered, and then decided to keep the secret. Seeing her looking heavy-hearted, Jae-woon expressed his gratitude for her organizing his birthday party. Hearing this, Da-young's weary heart felt somewhat relieved. Jae-woon drove the girls home. Before saying goodbye, he asked Da-young to save his phone number. He realized that Da-young was forgetful, so he left his number just in case. Returning home, Da-young found Sang-a upset over the situation with Lawyer Kwon. After getting to know him, Sang-a realized that Lawyer Kwon was a good person. People say, "Don't hit a person who's running away, but don't hurt the person who comes back." And yet she had hurt someone as good as him. Da-young also thought that Lawyer Kwon was kind-hearted and was a good match for Sang-a. Da-young analyzed that perhaps Lawyer Kwon's approach to pursuing her wasn't right, but Sang-a could give him a chance to truly understand him. So-mai listened quietly as the other two girls talked, then received a text message from Ga-ram, a part-time worker at the director's bar. Seeing the cheerful expressions of the three of them, So-mai felt happy, but some unhappy memories also surfaced in her mind. Back when So-mai was in high school, one day her mom and dad weren't home. She bought cream puffs to share with her brother, but her brother ordered beer instead. So-mai's recollection was interrupted by Da-young. Da-young asked if she had a boyfriend. So-mai denied it and didn't mention the hidden memory. Da-young went back to her room, remembering how Jae-woon had reminded her to save his phone number. She felt a sweet feeling in her heart, wanting to text him. She thought about it for a long time and then decided not to bother Jae-woon. The next day, Jae-woon arrived on time to clean. He first made drinks and pastries for the three girls. They were all very pleased. A new day began with Jae-woon's thoughtfulness. Lawyer Kwon, having been rejected by Sang-a, had not yet given up. He stood quietly in front of her house, wanting to take a peek at Sang-a. But his sneakiness was spotted by So-mai when she went outside. So-mai, with her fear of men, thought he was a bad guy with malicious intentions and reported him to the police. Lawyer Kwon was taken to the police station. So-mai and Sang-a went to the station to identify the perpetrator, but were shocked to discover it was Lawyer Kwon himself. The misunderstanding was cleared up, and Lawyer Kwon was deeply embarrassed in front of Sang-a. Sang-a wasn't heartless. She genuinely didn't want to hurt his feelings, so she took the initiative to ask him out for a meal. The tables turned, and Lawyer Kwon was visibly overjoyed, eagerly anticipating their dinner date. Meanwhile, Da-young ran into trouble. Today, she had to present the advertisement Jae-woon filmed to a client, but she had left her bag, containing the USB, at home. She urgently contacted her two best friends, but unfortunately, neither of them were home. With no other option, she had to ask Jae-woon for help. Deputy Director and tried to stall for time, waiting for Jae-woon to arrive. Seeing that Deputy Director and couldn't stall any longer, she took a gamble and began the presentation at the critical moment. Jae-woon rushed in, out of breath, handing her the bag. Time was of the essence, so Da-young quickly thanked him and went on with her presentation. Carelessly, she tripped, and the contents of her bag scattered everywhere. The department head of the partner company, taking advantage of the chaos, subtly kicked a birth control pill away to prevent it from being seen, but a sharp-eyed female colleague still noticed it. Jae-woon stepped forward to help Da-young up and gathered her belongings. Da-young regained her composure and completed the presentation smoothly, to the client's great satisfaction. Before leaving, the department head even put in a good word for Da Young with deputy director and hoping she'd be offered a full-time position soon. The presentation finished, Da Young breathed a sigh of relief. She sent a thank you message to Jae-woon, unaware that her colleagues were gossiping about her taking birth control pills, even making up stories about her having a promiscuous lifestyle. Da Young went to a bar owned by the director, wanting to treat her friends to drinks to celebrate the successful ad launch, but she couldn't reach Sang-ae. When she and So-mi got home, they found Jae-woon helping Sang-a string beads. Seeing them laughing and chatting happily, Da Young felt a little uneasy. That night, Sang-a was worried about not being able to meet a delivery deadline. She came up with an idea, thinking of Jae-woon, and asked him to help her string beads. Jae-woon couldn't resist her pleading, and after negotiating a price, he began working. Sang-ae's neck got stiff from looking down for too long, so Jae-woon stood up and made a hot rice pack, telling her that it was very effective. Sang-a was curious where he learned these little tricks. Jae-woon recalled his past with So-hee. So-hee was also very busy like Sang-ae, and to help her relieve stress, he would give her a hot pack and massages every day. He asked her what she was so busy with and why she was always so tired. So-hee didn't answer. When he asked again, she had already fallen asleep. Jae-woon snapped out of his memory and continued working with Sang-ae. Just then, Da Young arrived home and saw them. Da Young went back to her room, feeling jealous of how Jae-woon always doted on the beautiful Sang-ae. They both stayed up all night and finally finished the order. Sang-a called a delivery driver, but then received a flyer from the police. Sang-a and everyone went to the police station, where they learned about the jewelry workshop that was founded. The workshop director registered the company under her name, and then used the workshop's name to borrow 10 billion won. Now, Sang-a was responsible for repaying this debt. Sang-a kept explaining that this had nothing to do with her. She was only the workshop's deputy director, and moreover, the jewelry workshop had closed down a long time ago. But on the documents, it clearly stated that she was the legal representative. Either way, she couldn't avoid her responsibility. Sang-a tried contacting the workshop director, but couldn't reach him. That's when she realized she had been scammed. Her already difficult life had suddenly become burdened with debt. She was in turmoil. Just when she was feeling overwhelmed, she received a message from Lawyer Kwon reminding her not to forget their dinner date. Everyone gathered at the bar, discussing how to help Sang-ae. They all supported seeking assistance from Lawyer Kwon, believing that pursuing legal avenues was the best approach. However, Jae-woon suggested that Sang-a wouldn't disclose this matter to Lawyer Kwon. Indeed, Sang-a still went to dinner with Lawyer Kwon as scheduled. She was feeling anxious and restless inside. Despite the situation, she didn't ask Lawyer Kwon for help. Lawyer Kwon noticed her distraction and asked her a few questions. Sang-ae, being very proud, lied and said that nothing was wrong. When she returned home, Da Young and two other friends surrounded her, asking about what had happened. Sang-ae confessed everything truthfully. She didn't want Lawyer Kwon to see her in such a pathetic state. Suddenly, Da Young blurted out that Sang-ae was only after Lawyer Kwon's money. If her feelings weren't genuine, then she shouldn't overthink it and should just boldly express what she wanted. The other two friends reminded Da Young that her words were a bit harsh. Da Young explained that she meant Sang-ae should clearly state her difficulties. If Lawyer Kwon wanted to back out after hearing it, then it would prove that he was not worth loving. Da Young sincerely advised Sang-ae to seek professional help from Lawyer Kwon. Sang-ae was irritated because her friends saw her as a gold digger. She wanted to rely on her own efforts to become a woman worthy of standing alongside successful people. After saying that, she refused to listen to anyone's advice and returned to her room. Da Young thought about it all night and knocked on Sang-ae's door to apologize, but the room was empty. Sang-ae had disappeared early in the morning. After much thought, Sang-ae decided to ask Jae-woon to accompany her to the factory director's hometown to find someone. On their way, Jae-woon texted Da Young. According to the original plan, Jae-woon was supposed to attend the party tonight, promoting his cleaning service. After the broadcast, it received very positive feedback. Many housewives had become Jae-woon's fans. The company decided to throw a celebration party. The team leader requested that Da Young invite Jae-woon to the event. The client wanted not only online commercials, but also to invite Jae-woon to film advertisements for television. Da Young had informed Jae-woon. Jae-woon had initially agreed to attend but had to renege because he wanted to help Sang-ae. However, Sang-ae's situation was more important at the moment. She urged Jae-woon to take good care of Sang-ae. Da-young anxiously informed the team leader that Jae-woon wouldn't be able to come. The team leader had told the client that Jae-woon would definitely attend. Now, upon receiving this news, she berated Da-young, demanding that she contact Jae-woon again. She had to get him to the event on time, no matter what. While Da-young was being pressured by the team leader, Jae-woon and Sang-a finally found the factory director. The director said that he had also been scammed by the middleman. Initially, the contract had been signed, but the other party had taken the money and fled. Now, the factory director didn't have money to pay the debt. Even if he sold his house and ships, he could only gather 2 to 3 billion won, which was far less than the 10 billion won he owed. Before the celebration party started, Da-young asked Jae-woon if Sang-ae's issue had been resolved and if he could attend the party. Seeing that Sang-a was still talking to the factory director, Jae-woon honestly replied that he didn't know when he would be able to return. At the celebration party, Da-young was forced to drink by the client. Seeing that the client had acknowledged Da-young's ability, the team leader repeatedly urged her to actively toast with the guests. Soon after, Da-young became drunk. She stepped outside to get some fresh air and sober up. Remembering Jae-woon's broken promise, she felt a surge of frustration. In her drunken state, she sent Jae-woon a text message, accusing him of initiating a kiss with her, but then treating Sang-a better. Right after sending the text, Chief Do appeared beside her, saying he'd found her birth control pill from the other day and returned it to Da-young. He asked if it was because she disliked being tied down by love and marriage, and preferred her freedom. Da-young, not thinking clearly, simply nodded in agreement, leading Chief Do to mistakenly believe she was like him, a staunch advocate for being single and enjoying a carefree life. He then moved closer, placing his hand on Da-young's shoulder, and began to grope her. At that moment, Jae-woon received Da-young's text and was suddenly reminded of their kiss that night. He called Da-young. Da-young pushed Chief Do's hand away and answered the phone. Chief Do continued to harass her. Hearing the commotion, Jae-woon realized Da-young was in trouble. Vice President An, who had stepped outside to take a call from her son, also witnessed Da-young being harassed. Before she could hang up, she rushed over to intervene. Unexpectedly, her son's voice calling "Mom" came clearly from Chief Do's phone. Chief Do, having discovered Vice President An's weakness, held on to Da-young while mocking Vice President An for hiding her status as a single mother. He pushed Da-young, causing her to fall, and muttered about her carrying birth control pills while pretending to be innocent. Unable to take it anymore, Vice President An punched Chief Do in the face, grabbed his collar, and yelled, "You scumbag, who do you think you are to look down on women? Why should I hide the fact that I have a child? Why do I have to try so hard? You trash like you, who gives you the right to laugh at me?" The next day, Da-young was awakened by So-mai. Due to drinking, she had no memory of what happened last night. So-mai told her that it was Jae-woon and Vice President An who took her home. Not only was Jae-woon physically assaulted by Vice President An, but he also stood looking at her for a long time before finally leaving. Da-young arrived at the office and noticed the tense atmosphere among her colleagues. Vice President An and the team leader were in conversation. A male colleague was describing the scene they witnessed last night. Not only had Vice President An physically assaulted a client company's Chief Do, but her status as a single mother was also exposed. After hearing her colleague's account, Da-young remembered the events and realized Vice President An had stepped in to teach the scumbag a lesson in order to help her. The team leader demanded that Vice President An go to the client company and kneel down to apologize. Not willing to bow her head to that scumbag, Vice President An angrily submitted her resignation. Da-young blamed herself for getting Vice President An into trouble, vowing to make Chief Do apologize so Vice President An would come back to work. Vice President An advised her not to escalate the matter. Right now, the most important thing for Da-young was to be hired as a permanent employee. Da-young asked Vice President An why she resorted to physical violence, but Vice President An told her to go ask Jae-woon herself. Meanwhile, on her way home, Sang-a received money transfers from 3 friends. Though the amount wasn't much, her friends wanted to chip in and help her out. Sang-a was deeply touched by her friends' generosity. Knowing everyone was having a tough time, she refused the money. Instead, she sold her designer clothes and handbags. After taking care of these matters, she took the factory manager to see Lawyer Kwon for help. Sang-a apologized to Lawyer Kwon, explaining that she had been hiding the company's difficulties since they met, and now she was sharing everything, hoping Lawyer Kwon would help them recover the money owed. Lawyer Kwon agreed, also happy that Sang-a had been honest with him. Their relationship had grown much closer. Sang-a's issue has been resolved. Everyone gathered to figure out a way to help Da-young with her problem. Jae-woon checked the surveillance cameras at the scene, but it was a blind spot, and it didn't capture the section chief pouring milk for Da-young. Da-young was both the victim and the only witness, but she was too drunk that night, making her testimony unconvincing. Da-young decided to find another way, forcing the section chief to speak up himself. After discussing a solution, Jae-woon scheduled a private meeting with Da-young. Jae-woon formally apologized to Da-young for the kiss that night. He said that as soon as he received Da-young's text, he remembered what had happened. Da-young didn't need him to apologize because when he kissed her, she didn't pull away. She had fallen in love with him without realizing it. Before deciding whether or not to accept Jae-woon's feelings, Jae-woon shared his story with her. Jae-woon used to be a bank employee in charge of evaluating loan applications. Once, the owner of a small to medium enterprise came to borrow money because he was experiencing business difficulties. He should have been able to get the loan, but there was a minor detail that didn't meet the requirements. The man begged Jae-woon to be lenient, saying that if he didn't get the money, he and his 50 employees would starve. Looking back, Jae-woon thought that if it were someone else, they probably would have approved the loan. But at the time, he insisted on adhering to the company's rules, even the smallest of regulations. His refusal led to the man's company going bankrupt. The man couldn't handle the shock and left his wife and children and hometown. Jae-woon attended the funeral but was blamed by the man's family for causing the tragedy. Jae-woon was caught in a cycle of self-blame from which he couldn't escape. Finally, unable to bear the immense psychological pressure, he stood on a bridge. It was then that So-hee entered his life. She said if he didn't want to live anymore, she would go with him. Until now, Jae-woon still vividly remembers So-hee that night, her hair blowing in the wind, her face flushed from being drunk, a cigarette in her hand. So-hee scolded him. "Don't just go like that, nobody cares," and advised him to be sober in this cruel world. Persuaded by So-hee, Jae-woon abandoned his foolish thoughts and went home with her. So-hee told him to find somewhere to sleep in the messy room and then left. The next morning, when So-hee returned, she found that Jae-woon had cleaned the house and kept him there. That's how they ended up living together. Later, they moved to Jae-woon's house. Jae-woon remembered that while So-hee wasn't good at cleaning, she was a warm and bright person. During the time he spent with So-hee, he felt like he had been reborn. So-hee was his savior and his emotional anchor. However, one day, So-hee left without saying goodbye, leaving him only one watch from their matching set. After So-hee left, Jae-woon became indifferent again until the director approached him, and they started a household services company together. For the past 5 years, Jae-woon has always dreamed of So-hee leaving him and often wakes up in the middle of the night. It wasn't until he finished cleaning the room for Da-young that those nightmares stopped haunting him. The night he kissed Da-young, he dreamed of So-hee again. Jae-woon believes that was the last time So-hee came to say goodbye. Jae-woon has decided to let go of the obsession he's had for so long and end things with So-hee, but he needs time. He hopes Da-young can wait for him. Da-young expressed her feelings for him, saying she's willing to wait for him to open up to her. After finishing these stories, Da-young asked Jae-woon why Vice President and physically assaulted him. Jae-woon recounted the events of that night. When he rushed to the scene, he saw Vice President and holding Da-young. When she saw him appear, Vice President An was very angry. It turns out she still remembered Jae-woon and Da-young going to buy birth control. Assuming that Jae-woon's failure to use safe practices caused Da-young to have to take birth control, leading to the subsequent trouble. It was all his fault. The next day, Da-young began confronting Section Chief Yu with the support of the cleaning lady. Da-young and her friends disguised themselves as cleaning staff and maintenance workers, plastering warning posters about body touching all over Section Chief Yu's office walls. Section Chief Yu, seeing the posters covering his walls, assumed the company was about to organize an activity related to him. Back at his desk, finding a poster on his own space, he grew uneasy and quickly searched online for the penalties for body touching. In the middle of this, Section Chief Yu went to the restroom. Taking this opportunity, the cleaning lady placed a book on addressing body touching issues on his desk. When Section Chief Yu returned and saw the note that read, "Seems like you need this," his face went pale. He suspected someone was aware of his weakness. Just as Section Chief Yu was feeling confused and worried, Jai-woon, dressed in a formal suit, entered the director's office. Section Chief Yu became restless, fearing Jai-woon would tell the director about the situation. When Jai-woon came out, he immediately followed him to ask what Jai-woon had said to the director. Jai-woon lied and said he had shared some opinions with the director about the body-touching issue that was becoming very prevalent recently. Hearing this, Section Chief Yu grew even more worried, questioning Jai-woon whether he and Da-young were the ones who had put up the posters. Suggesting a private talk, Jai-woon said they should find a secluded place. He led Section Chief Yu to the rooftop, where Da-young had been waiting. Section Chief Yu realized he had been tricked, but he stubbornly refused to admit to the harassment. Da-young demanded he provide proof, otherwise she would sue Vice President and for intentional bodily harm. Da-young threatened that if he didn't apologize, she would post his misdeeds on the company's internal network, exposing everything to everyone. Da-young was just an intern yet to be hired full-time. Losing her job was not a big deal, but it was different for Section Chief Yu. If his reputation was ruined, it would be very difficult to get hired at a major company. Section Chief Yu, frightened, immediately agreed to go to Da-young's company and publicly apologize to her and Vice President An. The goal was achieved. Da-young produced a doctor's certificate proving that she was taking birth control pills to treat menstrual cramps. She warned him never to use his filthy thoughts to judge women again. Da-young's friends were at home, waiting for good news. All three of them imagined the scene of Section Chief Yu kneeling down and begging for forgiveness in front of everyone. Although they didn't get to witness that satisfying scene, just thinking that the scumbag had received due punishment made them feel very happy. So Mai, being practical, analyzed that while Section Chief Yu was wrong at the moment, with time, different rumors would emerge. For example, some people would say the victim was drunk, trying to seduce men, or that the victim had indecent behavior, and so on. Moreover, Da-young wanted Vice President An to return to work, and if this matter became too noisy, it would be difficult to manage. Da-young also thought the same. She only wanted Section Chief Yu to apologize to her and Vice President An in front of their colleagues, proving they were not wrong. After all, Section Chief Yu was a representative of a client company. If they publicly exposed his body touching, it would undoubtedly affect future cooperation. But she hadn't anticipated that team leader Yu would personally recount the incident of physical contact and the cause of the conflict with Vice President An. At the same time, he officially apologized to Da-young and Vice President An. After completing these actions, team leader Yu breathed a sigh of relief. That evening, after being physically assaulted by Vice President An, he had been very anxious, fearing his own misdeeds would be exposed. He had even gone to the hospital specifically to get a medical certificate just in case. Looking back now, he felt truly cowardly. Da-young felt a little surprised. At this moment, team leader Yu seemed more like a man. He had explained everything clearly without jeopardizing the cooperation between the two companies. Da-young was very satisfied. Afterward, Da-young and Jai-woon went to see Vice President An, hoping she would return to work. They told her that team leader Yu had apologized and promised never to pry into her personal life again. However, Vice President An was disillusioned with the company and wanted to take some time off before looking for another job. Da-young honestly said that she knew Vice President An was very talented and could easily find a new position, but she still wanted to learn from her. Furthermore, she had only just found a kindred spirit in this company, and she wanted to continue working with her. Vice President An agreed to think it over, and in the meantime, she would spend time with her son. Everything was resolved smoothly. Everyone gathered at a bar to drink and celebrate. The conversation eventually circled back to matters of the heart. Everyone teased Sang-ae and attorney Kwon. Sang-an explained that they weren't officially dating yet. She wished their relationship would be solidified with a special, memorable gesture. Attorney Kwon immediately knelt down to propose. The director quickly pulled him aside, sharing his secret dating tips. He said that things should progress gradually, and one should wait for the right moment before confessing their feelings, or else it could backfire. Attorney Kwon quickly took notes and thanked the director for his advice. Sang-a revealed that Haiju, who didn't live with them, was living with a man. Haiju explained that they were just roommates, not lovers. Afterward, she asked Jae-woon to come to her house to clean. Jae-woon arrived at Haiju's house on time. Initially, Chul-soo, who was living with Haiju, didn't want to invite a stranger to clean the house. But when he opened the door and saw a handsome man, he immediately changed his attitude, enthusiastically giving Jae-woon a tour of the house. Jae-woon sensed the issue between them. After Chul-soo left, he bluntly pointed out that Haiju was in love with a gay man. Haiju was ashamed and distraught. She felt that loving a gay man was something embarrassing to hide. She said that at first, she had just felt sorry for Chul-soo, who didn't have a place to stay, so she had kindly let him stay with her. Unexpectedly, Chul-soo returned just in time to hear this statement. Chul-soo pretended not to have heard anything, calmly talking to Haiju. But that night, he didn't come home to sleep, and the next day, he didn't go to sell goods with her either. Haiju couldn't contact Chul-soo, so she decided to seek out the man Chul-soo liked. But to her surprise, that man confessed his feelings for her. Initially, the man thought that Chul-soo and Haiju were lovers. It wasn't until he confessed his feelings to Haiju that Chul-soo said that he and Haiju were just friends. Chul-soo lied and said that Haiju also liked him, encouraging him to boldly pursue Haiju. Haiju hadn't expected that the three of them would end up in such a love triangle. She understood how Chul-soo felt with his unrequited love, and she also made it clear to the other man that she and Chul-soo were really just friends. But secretly, she was in love with Chul-soo. Still, there was no news of Chul-soo, and Haiju sadly cried. Right then, Chul-soo unexpectedly returned, lying that he had found a new place to live and was about to move out. Haiju asked Jae-woon to come over and cook a lavish meal. She wanted to have a farewell dinner with Chul-soo. While eating dinner, Haiju honestly told Chul-soo that she had gone to find the man he liked. Chul-soo felt deeply embarrassed. In fact, he even thought Haiju was showing off in front of him, so he got angry and stormed off. Haiju, summoning all her courage, confessed, saying that the person she liked was Chul-soo. Upon hearing this, Chul-soo turned around and continued eating. The two of them resolved their misunderstandings and decided to remain roommates. Although Chul-soo didn't reciprocate Haiju's feelings, she believed that bravely speaking her mind was the first step to letting go. On the other side, Sang-a, while having temporarily resolved her debt issues, was now struggling with her job. She wasn't used to the monotonous routine of working as an employee. Jae-woon suggested that she gather women interested in part-time work, teach them her handmade crafts, and become her own boss. Sang-a was very enthusiastic about the idea, but she worried that bringing many people to Da-young's house would cause inconvenience. Da-young encouraged her to go for it. When her father designed this house years ago, he wanted it to always be filled with laughter and chatter. She fully supported Sang-a's entrepreneurial venture. Sang-a was very grateful. With Jae-woon's help, she quickly established a handmade craft team. To thank everyone for their help, she invited them all to a bar for drinks. So-mai arrived at the bar first. Over this period, Ga-ram had developed feelings for her. Strangely, when she was with Ga-ram, So-mai didn't feel scared. She concluded that her subconscious mind regarded Ga-ram as a child. Ga-ram seized the opportunity and offered to help So-mai gradually get used to interacting with men so she could overcome her fear and find love. So-mai thought for a while and finally agreed to accept Ga-ram's help. Ga-ram taught her how to look men directly in the eyes to test her progress. When talking to Jae-woon, So-mai looked him straight in the eyes. Jae-woon, not understanding what was going on, eventually had to look away and turn to pour a drink for So-mai. So-mai's heart was pounding, but she was very happy that the exercise was working. The party ended, and as everyone was leaving, Da-young left a gift for Jae-woon. It was a neck pillow, and inside it was a note from Da-young, wishing him good sleep from now on. Jae-woon was very touched and sent Da-young a thank you message. They chatted for a long time after saying good night. Da-young hugged a neck pillow identical to Jae-woon's, smiling with delight. The neck pillow Da Young gave him allowed Jae-woon to have his first good night's sleep in many years, enveloped in Da Young's warm feelings. Finally, he decided to let go of the past. The next day, So-mi went to see Ga-ram again. This time, Ga-ram taught her how to swear, telling her to think about the person who frightened her, and then vent all her anger at that person. So-mi became immersed in a painful memory, unable to escape. Tears streamed down her face. Ga-ram and Jae-woon were flustered, not knowing what had happened. When So-mi was in middle school, her mother remarried her stepfather and brought her along. Unexpectedly, her stepbrother developed malicious intentions towards her. Taking advantage of when her parents weren't home, he got her drunk and molested her. So-mi wanted to tell her mother, but couldn't bear to ruin her mother's newfound happiness, so she endured it in silence. Seeing her passivity, her stepbrother became even more aggressive. He not only bullied her, but also bragged about it to his friends. These experiences left So-mi with psychological trauma, causing her to develop a fear of men. Just looking directly into a man's eyes made her want to run away. So-mi snapped out of her memory. She was not ready to share these things yet, so she ran away as Ga-ram and Jae-woon looked on with concern. Ga-ram worried that So-mi wouldn't accept his treatment methods anymore, so he quickly called her. Luckily, after calming down, So-mi didn't give up on her treatment. Ga-ram breathed a sigh of relief. Encouraged by Ga-ram, So-mi finally learned how to swear, releasing all the pent-up frustrations she'd been holding onto. She felt much lighter. The next day, deputy director and finally decided to return to work. During the time she was away, without a leader, everyone felt lost. The team leader also realized the importance of deputy director and warmly welcomed her back. Da Young was overjoyed, and even more delightful was that Jae-woon had specially brought her lunch, comforting her for her hard work. Taking the opportunity, Da Young asked Jae-woon to share his cleaning expertise with the cleaning ladies. Jae-woon was now a popular figure online, and the cleaning ladies were incredibly excited to see him, almost taking out their notebooks to jot down his cleaning methods. Over at the workshop, her side business was gradually getting on track, with more and more older ladies joining. Lawyer Kwon came by every day, finding excuses to see Sang-ae. He asked Jae-woon that if he had any ideas that could help Sang-ae in the future, to let him know so he could implement them. Hoping to score points with Sang-ae, Jae-woon then reminded him, "If it's convenient, please wait outside for 30 minutes before coming in." Recalling how Sang-ae had rushed into her room earlier, Lawyer Kwon immediately understood. Sang-ae didn't want to see him before she had her makeup on. He had to give her time to do it. Lawyer Kwon was grateful for Jae-woon's reminder and obediently went outside to wait. Before long, Friday arrived. After work, Da Young hurried home. Today was her first date with Jae-woon. Sang-ae, who was getting ready to meet Lawyer Kwon, turned around to help her do her makeup. Once everything was ready, Da Young arrived at the restaurant where she had arranged to meet Jae-woon. But Jae-woon, who was always punctual, hadn't arrived yet. Da Young called Jae-woon, but no one answered. Even when the restaurant closed, she still couldn't get in touch with him. Da Young couldn't help but worry and quickly ran to the bar to look for him. The bar manager was also looking for Jae-woon, because he hadn't shown up all day, and customers with reservations had been calling to complain. The two of them urgently tried to think about where Jae-woon could be. At this moment, the manager remembered a place, and he quickly led Da Young to Jae-woon's old house. Jae-woon was indeed there, lying on the bed, his whole body drenched in sweat, moaning in pain. It turned out that before meeting Da Young, Jae-woon had mustered the courage to open the door of the house that had been abandoned for so long. He decided to sleep there for one night, leaving the memories of So-hee in the past. But because he was caught in the rain earlier in the day, coupled with his poor health, he had developed a fever. Da Young and the manager quickly took Jae-woon to the hospital. The doctor diagnosed Jae-woon with a severe cold, and he only needed enrollment 4 and 2 days of rest to recover. Da Young didn't leave Jae-woon's side, her heart aching for him. Jae-woon always helped others, but when it was important, he had to endure the pain alone. Jae-woon woke up and apologized to Da Young for missing their date. Da Young didn't want him to blame himself. She followed his way of taking care of others and cooked porridge for him to eat. When Jae-woon woke up again, he saw Da Young sleeping by his bedside, and his heart filled with emotion. He was both touched and felt the love growing in his heart. Jae-woon opened up to Da-young. It was the first time he had returned to the house where he had lived with So-hee after 5 years. That day, after throwing away So-hee's watch, he had stood in the rain for a long time. Ever since So-hee left, his heart had been empty until he met Da-young. Da-young was always absent-minded and careless, but she was always full of vitality. That energy encouraged him and gradually filled the emptiness in his heart. Jae-woon frankly said that he had many flaws, but he still wanted to walk the path ahead with Da-young. Would Da-young agree? Da-young had finally waited for this day, and she quickly nodded her agreement. The two of them acknowledged their feelings for each other, becoming a couple from that moment on. Da-young didn't go home all night. Sang-a and their other friends didn't expect their relationship to progress so quickly. But Jae-woon seemed to be a polite and gallant person on their first date, so he probably wouldn't do anything excessive. They couldn't reach Da-young and Jae-woon, so they called the manager, who told them that Jae-woon was sick. Da-young had taken care of him all night. The three of them went to the hospital to visit Jae-woon. Seeing his place so empty and lifeless, they decided to surprise him. So, the four of them split up to buy household items, transforming the bare space into a cozy home. Jae-woon woke up to find his place completely changed. The four girls even cooked a special meal for him. Jae-woon sat down at the table, surrounded by love and friendship. He was so touched he couldn't even speak. After taking care of Jae-woon, Sang-a and Lawyer Kwon went on a date. Knowing Sang-a liked squid, Lawyer Kwon took her to a famous restaurant. Unfortunately, the restaurant was closed that day. Sang-a, suppressing her disappointment, comforted Lawyer Kwon, who was apologizing profusely. Just then, a motorcycle almost hit Sang-a. Lawyer Kwon quickly pulled her into his arms, but Sang-a's heel got stuck in a drain cover. Lawyer Kwon ended up carrying Sang-a back. Although their plan was ruined, he inadvertently got a chance to be intimate with her. Lawyer Kwon was secretly delighted. Lawyer Kwon carried Sang-a back to his company, helping her fix her shoe. Sang-a accidentally saw a meal plan that Lawyer Kwon had written. She couldn't believe that for a simple meal, Lawyer Kwon had researched all the restaurants, meticulously considering every detail. Touched by such a thoughtful man's affection, Sang-a was deeply moved. Now, all that was missing was a formal and romantic confession. This time, Lawyer Kwon was in rare agreement with Sang-a. The next day, he brought flowers and fruit to confess his feelings, hoping to surprise Sang-a. He asked a woman in the handmade crafts team to call Sang-a outside to the courtyard, under some pretext. Knowing that Sang-a cared a lot about her image, he even specifically asked the woman what Sang-a was wearing. The woman thought for a moment and replied that she looked very glamorous. It turned out that it was getting increasingly hot. That day, when she came to work, the woman had given Sang-a a pair of cool, comfortable pants, boasting that they each had a pair, indicating how comfortable they were. Lawyer Kwon, unaware of this, saw Sang-a come out and immediately dropped to one knee, offering her flowers, asking to formally date her. The other women also rushed out, throwing confetti. "We're officially dating from today." "Why now? Here, like this." Sang-a angrily ran inside. Lawyer Kwon was immediately filled with regret. Meanwhile, Da-young took Jae-woon to the cemetery to visit her father's grave. She had promised her father that when she had a boyfriend, she'd let him know right away. Now that she was with Jae-woon, she could finally put her father's mind at ease. From now on, she wouldn't be alone. She would live happily every day. Jae-woon also stood before Da-young's father's grave, promising to take good care of her, and that he wouldn't let her be alone again. Da-young sent a message to Jae-woon, wanting to meet. But Jae-woon replied, "I don't have time tonight." It turned out that Jae-woon had seen a picture of So-hee in his room at the bar. Besides the manager and Jae-woon, only Ga-ram was in the bar. Both suspected that Ga-ram had placed the picture to test them. The manager deliberately gave him a bag of ice cream, then took advantage of the fact that his hands were full to search him. Ga-ram evaded, and a picture fell out. Two pictures, one of Ga-ram and one of So-hee, joined together to create one complete picture. The manager and Jae-woon were shocked, questioning Ga-ram, "What is the relationship between you and So-hee?" Ga-ram, seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, had to tell the truth. "So-hee is my biological mother." Ga-ram was never able to meet his mother from the day he was born. His father told him that she had passed away while giving birth to him. Over the years, Ga Ram and his father relied on each other, but his father didn't treat him well. At the age of 17, Ga Ram was arrested and taken to the police station for causing trouble with delinquent youths. If he didn't pay restitution, Ga Ram would be sent to a juvenile detention center. It was at this moment that So-hee appeared. She helped Ga Ram pay the restitution and also told him that she had given birth to him when she was 17 years old. Now that Ga Ram was also 17, she didn't want his life to be tarnished. Ga Ram lived with his mother for 3 years. On his graduation day, the mother and son took a picture together, which was the same photo that Jae-woon and the director had seen that night. When Ga Ram returned home, he discovered that his mother had disappeared, leaving him only a letter hoping that he would live well. In the letter, his mother also said that she had something she needed to do. After his mother left, Ga Ram learned that initially, his mother had paid his father a large sum of money in exchange for the opportunity to raise him for 3 years. While searching for his mother, he discovered the relationship between Jae-woon and his mother. The money his mother paid his father for raising him, and other debts, were all paid in installments by Jae-woon. He guessed that Jae-woon was the something she needed to do that his mother had mentioned. Knowing that Jae-woon was also searching for his mother, Ga Ram took a part-time job at the bar, hoping to find information about her. Now, seeing Jae-woon and Da-young falling in love, he worried that Jae-woon would give up searching for his mother. Therefore, he placed his mother's picture in Jae-woon's room. Jae-woon and the director realized the situation, and both were surprised that So-hee had a child. Now, piecing together the facts that Ga Ram had stated, the director suspected that So-hee was intentionally approaching Jae-woon so he could help her pay off her debts. Regardless, the director hoped that Jae-woon would give up his search for So-hee and live happily with Da-young. Jae-woon had his own thoughts. Perhaps 5 years of searching had become an obsession for him. Now, he just wanted to find the answers for himself. On Da-young's side, there were also some developments. On her way home, she encountered an old man who was carrying a lot of things. She stepped forward to help him, but noticed a watch in his home that looked identical to the watch that So-hee had left for Jae-woon. The old man explained that he used to own a watch repair shop. When So-hee came to repair a watch, she left behind an address, but he couldn't remember where he had put the address. Da-young was in a complicated state of mind and rushed away. In her heart, she was worried, afraid that So-hee still had feelings for Jae-woon. She didn't know if she should tell him about this or not. After thinking for a long time, she decided to go to the old man's house to find So-hee's address. However, she couldn't find the address at the old man's house. The old man suspected that the address had been thrown away by Jae-woon when he was cleaning up the house for him 2 days ago. Da-young didn't give up and went to the trash pile to search. Just then, she was seen by John, and she lied, saying that she was looking to see if there was anything that could be used in the things that the old man had thrown away. Jae-woon didn't know the truth, but he knew that Da-young's house was already filled with stuff, and she still couldn't get rid of the old things, let alone bring more home. Da-young, unable to find anything at the trash pile, returned to the old man's house and saw Jae-woon about to throw away the old man's wall calendar. The old man stopped her, saying that he often wrote phone numbers on the wall calendar. Da-young thought for a moment, and taking advantage of when John wasn't paying attention, she flipped through the calendar. Sure enough, she found So-hee's address on it. Just then, the bar director came to see the old man to chat. The old man told the director about Da-young searching for the address of the woman who repaired watches. He assumed that the director didn't know So-hee, not knowing that the two of them had known each other for a long time. Earlier, the director had seen So-hee's watch at the old man's house. The old man had also seen So-hee's address written in a notebook. Taking advantage of when the old man wasn't paying attention, he secretly tore out the page with the address on it. His purpose was to prevent Jae-woon from seeing it. Unexpectedly, the address fell into Da-young's hands. In the evening, Jae-woon made a late-night snack for the 4 women. Da-young went out to buy alcohol. While walking through a small alley, she bumped into So-hee, but the two of them didn't know each other, just regarding each other as strangers. Later, So-hee went to see the old man to get her watch. The old man asked her if she knew Da-young. Hearing the name Da-young for the first time, So-hee said she didn't know her. At the dinner table, everyone chatted happily. So-mai had learned about the relationship between Jae-woon and So-hee from Ga Ram. She worried that Jae-woon wouldn't be able to forget So-hee, and was afraid that Da-young would be hurt. Da-young was also hesitant about whether to tell Jae-woon about So-hee's address. At that moment, Jae-woon unexpectedly received a call from the hospital. He and Da-young rushed to the hospital. It was then that they learned that the director had cancer. Jae-woon was angry because the director had been hiding it from him for so long. The director honestly explained that he had been sick since he first met Jae-woon. The past 5 years had been a period of good luck for him, and he was very grateful for having become family to Jae-woon. Now, he only wanted to see Jae-woon happy and again reminded him not to search for So-hee anymore. Da-young overheard their conversation and didn't understand Jae-woon's attitude towards So-hee. The director spoke privately with Da-young, asking her not to tell Jae-woon about So-hee's address. Jae-woon had endured suffering for 5 years and was finally moving on. He didn't want everything to fall apart. On the way home, Da-young thought about the director's words, feeling very conflicted. But in the end, she still gave So-hee's address to Jae-woon. She hoped to resolve the conflict in Jae-woon's heart so that he could choose for himself. As soon as she stepped through the door, Da-young burst into tears. Pushing the person she loved away with her own hands caused her great pain, but she wanted a pure love. She also wanted Jae-woon's eyes to only show joy, not sadness. Jae-woon went to So-hee's house using the address, and stood silently in front of the door for a long time, but didn't go in. The next day, Jae-woon placed a letter in So-hee's mailbox. In the letter, he thanked her for saving his life back then, and also hoped she wouldn't feel guilty towards him. He always wished her happiness. While waiting for the bus to return, Jae-woon saw a pair of shoes. He looked up and saw that the person standing in front of him was So-hee, the one who had disappeared 5 years ago. So he said to Jae-woon that, more accurately, it wasn't her who saved him, but he who saved her, on the day he had a foolish idea. So-hee felt the same way as him, and she also walked onto the bridge. She was fed up with her life as a bar hostess, having lost all hope for her life and future. She just wanted to die and be done with it all. But seeing someone else who felt the same way, she felt that she shouldn't take her life for granted. The words she used to advise Jae-woon were actually the words she needed to tell herself. She was very grateful for the time she spent with Jae-woon, which had allowed her to experience joy and happiness for the first time in her life. But in the end, she had used Jae-woon to pay off her debt. Even though she was disappearing from his life, she still felt guilty. Now, she just hoped that Jae-woon could forget the past, meet a good woman, and live happily. Jae-woon gave a handkerchief to the crying So-hee and reiterated that no matter what, she had once pulled him out of the mud, and he would always be grateful to her. He also hoped that So-hee would understand and live well. The two of them spoke their minds clearly, officially ending their past. At this time, Da-young was pacing back and forth in the yard, worried that Jae-woon would return to So-hee. Only when she went back to her room did she see that Jae-woon had sent her many messages, saying that he wanted to see her immediately. Da-young threw her phone down and excitedly ran to find Jae-woon. Jae-woon hadn't received a reply message from Da-young and calls went unanswered. Worried that something bad might have happened to her, he frantically rushed to her house. The two met each other on the street. Da-young threw herself into Jae-woon's arms, tears welling up as she realized that Jae-woon had met with So-hee and cleared things up. Da-young initiated a kiss. Jae-woon held Da-young tightly, passionately kissing her back. Afterward, with Jae-woon's encouragement, the bar manager agreed to go to a rehabilitation center for treatment. He entrusted the bar to Jae-woon and Ga-ram to manage. Ga-ram had contacted her mother and agreed to both establish the bar and work part-time there. Everyone saw the manager off and encouraged him to bravely fight his illness and return soon. The manager was very reluctant to leave this familiar place. He recalled memories of So-hee from back then when she was being harassed by a drunken customer. He had stepped in to help, but So-hee was not grateful. So-hee didn't like that he was a gangster living such a reckless life. Because So-hee didn't like it, the manager had left the gangster world and started doing honest business. Unfortunately, after that, So-hee disappeared, not giving him a chance to be with her. On the other side, the lawyer realized that Sang-a had always longed to become a jewelry designer. To help her realize her dream, he had stayed up all night searching for designer job postings online. Sang-a successfully passed her interview, and through relentless effort, she launched her own brand. She attributed it all to Lawyer Kwon and, out of gratitude, personally designed 2 rings. They exchanged the rings, vowing to be together for life. Sang-a curiously asked Lawyer Kwon why he meticulously planned everything in advance. Lawyer Kwon revealed that from childhood, his entire life had been meticulously orchestrated by his mother, and he'd never had his own opinions until meeting Sang-a. Her independence and freedom deeply attracted him. Since being with Sang-a, he'd found his purpose in life and realized what truly mattered. However, he admitted that he sometimes lacked confidence, which is why he carefully planned each date with Sang-a, wanting to offer her only the very best. Hearing Lawyer Kwon's heartfelt words, Sang-a was deeply moved. Lawyer Kwon finally summoned the courage to kiss Sang-a. They were enveloped in happiness, each feeling incredibly fortunate to have found the other. What about So-mi? Today was her stepfather's birthday. Her mother called her home for a meal and recounted a story about her older brother. Initially, when her mother married her stepfather, her brother mistakenly thought her mother was a homewrecker and harbored resentment toward them both. Later, upon learning the truth, her brother had tearfully apologized to their mother for having wronged So-mi. Her mother remarked that her brother was a sensitive child. Now, their family was finally at peace, having overcome immense difficulties to achieve their current happiness. As So-mi was leaving, her brother proactively saw her out. Seeing his hesitant expression, So-mi knew he wanted to apologize, but she stopped him. She was pleased that her brother had recognized his mistakes, but even more so, she was overjoyed at having overcome her own fear. From now on, she would confidently look everyone in the eye, without evasion or fear. Moreover, thanks to her beautiful nail designs, So-mi's nail salon was incredibly popular. But outside of work, So-mi had also developed another passion, becoming a dedicated fan of the band formed by Gairam. Meanwhile, Haiju and Chol-su's business continued to thrive. Although they couldn't be lovers, they remained the closest of friends and family. Da-young's official employment exam finally arrived. Before the exam, her colleagues offered her advice. During the interview, both the team leader and vice president spoke highly of her. While her abilities were widely recognized, unfortunately, due to a case of nepotism, she ultimately did not pass the exam. During her unemployment, Da-young finally decided to sort through her father's belongings. Looking at these familiar items, she recalled her father's struggles in raising her, and she couldn't hold back her tears. Thankfully, Jae-woon was always by her side, ensuring that she no longer felt alone. Jae-woon moved in with Da-young and the other girls. Every morning, they enjoyed a delicious breakfast prepared by John, filling their days with joy. Not long after, Vice President resigned to start her own advertising company. Da-young interviewed and was hired, becoming her employee once again. As for the director at the nursing home, he told his roommates the story of his innocent love for So-hee. Unexpectedly, the main character in his story arrived at the nursing home as a counselor. The director confessed that, because So-hee disliked gangsters, he had given up his old ways the previous year. So-hee understood his feelings and also learned that Jae-woon had helped her pay off her debts, with the director's help as well. She sincerely thanked the director. Having weathered so many storms, the two quietly enjoyed their present lives. It was another beautiful day. Everyone gathered at Da-young's house, sharing a meal and relishing the joy of being surrounded by love and friendship. They had all faced confusion, hesitation, setbacks, and failures, but thankfully, after overcoming their trials, each had found their own path, ready to wholeheartedly welcome their new lives.